Everybody, it's a great Joanna speaking for yet another live stream episode. I have prepared a little speech to talk about the rich eating the poor. So it's not eat the rich, but eat the poor. Because what's going on? I get the impression that Western economies are going bankrupt. And in response to that bankruptcy, Western rich elites are doing what I call autophagy. That's a difficult word from biology. It means self-digestion. You digest your own muscle, for example. Say you have done a lot of sports training, you got some muscle, but then for a couple of weeks you don't do any sports and you don't eat. What happens? What happens? You start digesting your own muscle. So the fat of Western societies is the middle class. That's where the wealth is, right? And if, however, economies take a massive downturn, how are the elites supposed to stay rich in their seventh house? You wouldn't want rich people to starve on their third yacht. No, they'll take your money. They will simply take, because they feel that way, that you are just a lower ranking creature anyway, they'll just take your money. They'll take it from your bank accounts with inflation, devaluing your purchasing power and so on. Many other ways. So I've prepared a little speech for this that I'm going to give you in a moment. Good evening. But before I start my speech, it shouldn't be too long, I think 20 minutes this time, and then we can talk. But before I start the speech, I have some household, messages. I'm going to do another talk to another woman, some very far-right woman from the USA. Probably coming Wednesday. It will be in the morning for her, but I over here in the Netherlands will do it in the evenings. So it will be 8 p.m., that episode will be 8 p.m. My time, Amsterdam time. It will be like something like 11 a.m. to her. But that will be very, very interesting that we can... I thought I wanted to do interviews with right-wing women, the very far-right women, to hear them out, because I'm very far-right. And I noticed when I talk to these women, my mind charges with an energy that I normally never feel. And I know now that these are mirror neurons, because mirror neurons are triggered when you watch people do something, but also when you meet people who share your values, who kind of agree with you. And that's rare to me, of course. When I go outside in the normal world, if I would speak my mind to people, they would get angry or frustrated or respond with disgust. And here I have all of a sudden, right-wing women. Most of them are Christian, right? And they share my values, they share my beliefs, they support these things, and they have other things to add to it. Rather than to fight me over things like debating a leftist, they got something to add that improves the whole thing to create a sort of mutual benefit. So I thought I was going to have a hard time finding women to talk to, me being me, but no, it's easy. This one simply wrote me and almost demanded that I should speak to her, which is fine, right? I'm joking. No, she wanted to talk to me, and that's excellent, right? And so that's going to happen more often than... I still really like to do my own speeches, so I'm going to keep doing my speeches regularly, 9 p.m. my time on Thursdays, to do what I want to do, but then I will probably slip in more interviews with people, more collabs, as they call it nowadays. I used to say interview, but that's boomer talk. It's collaborations, right? We're going to do collabs with right-wing women as much as I can do, but once a week or so, like every Wednesday or so if I can, right? And I want to introduce to you this. This is my latest book. I've been working on this, on editing and revising it the past few days, getting it ready. And I got the ebook, I got the EPUB file, right, and the PDF file for the print. So this is going to be a paperback available on Amazon in a few days, probably by next week or so. So next, I will remind you next live stream that you can actually buy the paperback. I think the EPUB for Kindle is already live on Amazon. Atonement for the Shadow, A Hiker's Diary. It's a short book, barely 90 pages or so, 94 pages total. And however, it's a very meaningful book. It's based on a personal experience I had hiking up the Hardangervidda in Norway. That's this mountain where you have the Trolltunga and so on. And When I got all the way up to the peak of the system, leaving the tourists behind, because the tourists, they stop at level 1, right? Then there's level 2 and 3. I went all the way up to level 3, basically very high up the mountain. And since this was in July, if I remember correctly, it was supposed to be the summertime, and I had not read the magazine or the booklet telling you that up the mountain that high, it's going to be snowy and icy, and there was rain, there was hail, there was fog. It was really cold. I was wet because I wasn't wearing proper clothing, and I became hypothermic. And then things got so bad, I was by myself. Hiking back to the nearest cabin was hours away through very difficult terrain, difficult to see terrain because you can hardly see the sort of waypointers. They have these basically just rocks that you need to identify, rocks pointing a certain direction. And if you miss them, right, you're going to be wandering off into who knows where. So I ended up on top of a snowy, icy, frozen mountain, and I spent the night there. I had my trekker's tent because my clothes were so wet. I started becoming shaky, like hypothermic, right? Bad situation. But I had a very, very warm, clean and dry sleeping bag, which I knew because I bought it. It was suitable for temperatures way below freezing. So I got into my sleeping bag, and then I had a problem, namely my air mattress turned out wasn't properly functioning. It had worked up until that day fine, but that night it started losing air very quickly. And so I'm lying on this frozen soil, which if you know anything about hiking in the winter cold, if you're lying on the soil, you'll be dead in a few hours because the earth can be so cold, it will suck the warmth out of your body. And so I had to spend my night regularly blowing air back into my air mattress, which was quite a scary experience to me, like a near-death experience, because I was already hypothermic and now I have to fight this air mattress to keep myself off the soil. Even though my sleeping bag, my mummy bag, was very warm, it would only keep me warm if I kept air in my air mattress. So that became a struggle. And that became the start for this book that I wrote, Atonement for the Shadow, A Hiker's Diary. It's actually about how do you stop being a people pleaser? How do you stop being nice? How can you become a much more brutal version of yourself? How do you bring about your dark side, your shadow? So this book is all about shadow work, and I recommend it to people who are looking to stop being nice and want to be a bit more rough or maybe a little bit more evil. You can do evil and still be a good person. So it's not like I'm anti-Christian or something. I support all Christian lore, but it's just that as a human being, you can't allow people to walk over you. How do you stop that? Right? That requires a total change of attitude, a total psychological transformation for you to simply cease being that sucker, that schmuck at dinner for schmucks, and you become something of a more aristocratic fighter, warrior, a victor, someone who gets things done, right? And that's what this little book is about. So I will promote it. Also, if you want the book as an EPUB, you can subscribe to jmk.info. Got my links here. No, not these. These ones, the simple ones. Right. And what you can do here is you can subscribe to jmk.info as my Substack. And then I'm going to send this book next week probably or soon as a sort of attachment so that people who are paid subscribers get the book. They're going to get my books for free from now on, because I'm also working on other books. Look, some writers have writer's block. I don't have writer's block. I have writer's overflow. I'm going to remove the image for a while. All right, so now your comments are going to be recorded as well. And so, yeah, maybe I should just get to my speech. I lost my train of thought there for a moment. But you can get my book if you're a paid subscriber. You will get it for free. And I'm writing a lot more books now. I'm working on that one where I promise people I'm writing a book about women. My view of it. Basically, it's a book for men about how to deal with women, what women expect of men. And I've got a pretty nifty draft already, but revising and editing books isn't easy. It can sometimes be more work than simply writing it. Writing is fun. If you're in the zone, you can write by with a pen, right? Pen. I sometimes write books with a pen because it adds something. Because on a computer you are prone to start deleting things that you didn't like. But if you write with a pen, you can cross things through. But then by the time you get to editing and revising, you may decide, hey, this was actually good. I'm glad I didn't delete it. So that's the benefit of writing with a pen or a pencil. And but revising and editing, I noticed that if I focus on it, say in the mornings, 3 hours dedicated, then I get things done. I get things done fairly quickly, fairly easily. And I started using AI, but only for proofreading. That's really useful, by the way. All these chatbots, what are they good at? Language. So I write the book, I edit it, I revise it. And when I feel, okay, this is the book I want to sell or publish, I need someone to proofread it, fix my commas and consistency in terms of capitalization and so on. And that's what Grok, I think, and these ChatGPT things are pretty damn good at. They're really good at proofreading. Because you'll check it, right? You as the human will still double check what they proofread. And that's the real great thing. All right. Enough talk. Well, I'm going to talk more. Enough chat. I have a speech prepared. I already introduced it at the start. And it's going to be about, I want to tell you about what I think is happening is that Western economies are devouring the middle classes and what that may mean to us. All right, let me flex my muscle, have a little sip, and then I'll talk about it. Yeah, I was going to say Nick is a Jewish Mexican who wants Kanye West to be president of the United States. No, just because Tucker Carlson is CIA and Candace Owens is CIA doesn't mean Nick Fuentes isn't also some kind of a secret service psyop, man. And if Baudet really talks to this guy, then I don't trust either of them. This is weird. It's weird. You can't do that. If you are pro-white, you don't sleep in Kanye West's house, do you? So from time to time, I can sense that the economy is taking a downturn. This affects only working people and those with small savings. For the financial elites, it can be beneficial to plan massive new infrastructure projects, like bridges, crossing channels and seas. They're building one in Italy now, from mainland Italy to Sicily. Cost them 10 years, billions and billions of euros. But do the jobs created by these projects really add to the well-being of the common people? Or are we perhaps cannibalizing our economy and digesting ourselves? So we're spending a ton of money on construction, on infrastructure. And so it appears as though the economy is growing because this is the effect, right? You're spending money, businesses are making money, they appear to be growing. But it comes at the expense of something. Namely, we are depleting the state tax coffers to do this. And that means you are really harvesting the middle class. So for every job created, one more baby can't be born or fed anymore. You're eating yourself up. An increasing number of young people, even or especially those who have managed to start a family now, are finding that there's no future for them in their own countries. Rents and mortgages are unaffordable, even to those with 2 jobs. Cars are becoming luxury expenses. Anyone who thinks 20-year-olds can afford a new electric car from Tesla is missing something, a brain. A major driver of this malaise is the education system. Degrees and diplomas no longer guarantee a job. Western nations have become overeducated, yet underpowered. We've lost our virility and our reproductive fertility. Young American graduates, for example, are leaving higher educated states and they are moving to so-called lower educated states. Traditionally, it used to be the opposite way around. Higher educated states paid better salaries despite the increased competition for jobs. But today, there are no jobs at all. And so young people, educated young people, are flocking to the states where the pay may be lower, but where there is at least still some demand for educated workers. And that's why university graduates are moving to Arkansas instead of New York City. This is the insanity we're dealing with. What happens when the educated and reasonably smart class of graduates finds out that their efforts were all in vain? You studied hard for a decade or more, and you're not going to get a job. That when you find out that being a smart, credentialed person with a PhD or an MSc or an MA or a BA, it doesn't matter anymore. When you find out that you've been better off, you would have been better off starting a TikTok channel, making thirst trap videos. Like, you could have been the next Addison Rae or Madison Humphrey, these women on TikTok with millions of followers. They're living the high life, but you studied facial recognition technology. You earned a PhD in iris scanning, and now you're jobless because no one needs you. There's an Indian out there who will do your job for half the price. To protect their fragile positions, however, the boomers, the Gen Xers, the millennials are feverishly holding on to all the jobs. That's why every job posting now requires a minimum of 10 years worth of experience for what used to be entry-level roles, even for technology that's barely 5 years old. You need to have 20 years in Bitcoin. It's only 10 years old or a bit more. You have to be old now to be able to get a job, right? And that means you need to be part of the older generation. So if you're a Gen Z or a Gen Alpha today, it's time for you to realize that there may never be jobs for you anymore. You've been conned, you've been screwed. And this has happened before. I study history sometimes. In the mid-19th century, around the 1850s, when we in Europe had our Karl Marx moment, during China's Qing dynasty, a man named Hong Xiuqian failed his exams to become an official 4 times over. It drove him so mad that he adopted Protestantism and rallied millions against the state. It was called the Taiping Rebellion, and over 20 million people died. The event was only overshadowed later by the Second World War. It's strange, though, that we in the West have hardly ever heard of the Taiping Revolution, but I sincerely recommend you look it up. Because if history is any guide, the atmosphere in the West spells revolution too. Not just a workers' revolution to overthrow the bourgeoisie, but a revolution of the bourgeoisie against the 0.1%. Unlike during the Taiping Rebellion, Americans and Western Europeans faced the arrival of their immigrant replacements by the millions. Our ruling classes understand this situation very well. They've positioned themselves to side with immigrants against the white middle class, because that's how they make money. By ripping us off and spending the money on their own businesses in the name of diversity. Even Hillary Clinton, that former presidential candidate, once wrote in her university thesis that the middle class is where the wealth is. She quoted Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, outlining a program to dispossess the white middle classes, the Zoomers and the Gen Alphas, who now can't get jobs. But Clinton wrote her thesis when jobs were plentiful, limited only by one's ambition. Today's young people must face a gauntlet. You've been discarded by the society that taught you to obey it. You've been betrayed by the politicians who told you to work hard, study hard, and party hard. Your bad luck doesn't even stop there. You are the middle class. You still have some assets and savings. If you don't, your parents still do. The point is, the ruling elites need that wealth to fund the migrant revolutions against you. It's not enough to just print more money and to devalue your savings that way via inflation. They're actively looking to seize your assets, your houses, your yachts, your boats, and your bicycles, to hand them to migrants as a reward for siding with the rich. Okay, I'm joking. Most of you don't own yachts, but you do have a life, and they'll take that too. That's the point. They're robbing you. And they're asking you to sit still while you're being robbed. In Western Europe, the situation is just as bleak. Countries like Britain show clear as day what these elitist scammers have in store for us. Despite mass immigration, the magic GDP line has stopped going up. So how do the royal rich then keep enriching themselves when even the colonies no longer offer returns on investments? Well, they rob the middle classes. They rob you. They rob the educated. They rob all of you holding BSc and bachelor's degrees. To put this in perspective, the middle classes usually own more wealth combined in savings than the total money controlled by the top banks in their country. In the United States, the middle class owns more wealth than the top 10 banks. So Clinton was right. The middle class is where the wealth is, and every predatory aristocrat knows it. If you can't rob foreign peoples through colonialism, you will rob your own people through socialism. It's the same damn thing. White middle class people are the fattened cows now being led to the slaughterhouse. As long as you remain unaware of the process, it kind of works like this. You work, you pay taxes. Your taxes are spent on migrant housing, welfare benefits, or a host of companies and corporations in the immigration industry. Some hotel owners became billionaires thanks to the taxpayer monies handed to them by the government. But rest assured, all European and American elites are heavily invested in this immigration industry. That's why they keep telling you that anyone can be British. Anyone can be French or American just by learning a few words of our languages and waving our flag now and then. Especially by acting offended if we say they still look foreign to us. To be French or German now means to receive free subsidies, housing, welfare, priority jobs, maybe even an e-bike thrown in, the kind of thing that ordinary working people could never afford to buy new anyway. But you're paying for it through your taxes. And while we scour marketplaces and thrift stores for secondhand goods to mimic what we can't have, the government scam doesn't end with handing Mohammed a free gym subscription and an unlimited public transportation pass. No, it started with immigrants. But there are lower class folks too who could use free stuff paid for by you, the working fool. Have you noticed that the rise in self-diagnosed TikTok autists, ADHDers, and others inventing new mental conditions? Yeah, it's no surprise to me. You can get a free car if your condition is in the DSM-5 nowadays, adjusted to your needs, of course. Why not take a free 3-year subscription to ChatGPT for anyone claiming ADHD? You couldn't live without Duolingo, could you? I'm not kidding. This is real. I'm not making this up. In many European countries, you can get up to $10,000 worth of free stuff, including computer monitors and ergonomic chairs that I can't even afford, just by claiming a mental condition. That explains why up to a third of young people now say they have a mental disorder. They're not really crazy, they're smart. If you can't get a job anyway, why not fake a mental disorder to get on benefits? If you're my age, you may have noticed a societal shift, or rather a sort of philosophical shift in society. The physical has become the mental. If in the 1980s we arrested rapists and robbers, now we arrest people who dare to call somebody a robber. Or if you misgender your rapist, you go to jail for longer than the rapist. Instead of protecting innocent people from violent crimes, we lock people up for the hate crime of saying hurtful words. Because words are violence, but violence is a social construct. In the 1990s, for example, people got sick with pneumonia. Now they have mental trauma from microaggressions. I attribute this to feminism. In a feminized world, someone running for mayor of New York City can say that violence is a social construct. Your bruised face isn't really bruised. You're just a racist. Beyond the weirdness of folks who believe building hospitals in Africa is the same thing as getting beat up in the Bronx, as revenge for colonialism, of course, the West's loss of masculine sanity points to another cause: exhaustion. The West has exhausted itself, chasing money and trying to get rich, and totally ignoring the spiritual aspect of what life is supposed to be about. That game isn't working anymore. People may be angered when I say that capitalism and communism are really two sides of the same coin, like water, vapor, and ice are both water. Both serve a financial elite. Capitalist societies transition to communist ones when their economies go bankrupt. Without a steady stream of wealth, former capitalist elites declare themselves communist and start rationing everybody else's wealth except their own. They get to have their yachts. You will lose your home. This is why true communism has never been tried. It's just a way for government cronies to rob productive middle-class people. What is the source of wealth in the world anyway? It's those people with skills, abilities, artisans, right? Everyone else is just living off of their labor. You wouldn't want elites to starve in their seventh home, would you? Likewise, a communist society that escapes material constraints becomes capitalist again. This is what Putin achieved when he forced Russian corporations to produce wealth for Russian citizens instead of American shareholders. Imagine if in America, he would be generating wealth for the people instead of for the shareholders. So Russia today is capitalist, but Europe has become communist. We used to point fingers at China too for its backward ways, but now the Chinese point chopsticks at us for becoming what their revolutionaries once fought to escape. The USA too is a dying empire. To stay in charge a bit longer, it must act like a dictatorship. Past ideals of democracy and free speech now sound like a farce. The phrase "Make America Great Again" and fighting for democracy have become old tunes. For now, the United States can force its allies to fund its economy and keep its elites rich. Europe, especially Germany, may provide a lifeline to American bankers by devouring European industry, by robbing EU citizens of their assets, including housing and land. This way, the USA can appear to remain capitalist while Europe is footing the bill. Europe has to become a communist nightmare because we're being robbed by the US elite. They're using us as their piggy bank. As with those people trying to escape communism, you'll find out that you won't be allowed to leave. In the new Europe, there will be border guards. Finally, they're going to protect the borders, just not to keep people out, but to keep you in. If you try to scale the barbed wires, they'll shoot you in the back. That's what happens in Ukraine, by the way. If you're a guy trying to escape Ukraine, they'll just shoot you. The death of Europe was announced in books like Douglas Murray's The Strange Death of Europe. But these books prepare you for what's coming, for what they want, for the end result that they chose for us. If they wanted you to thrive, they would promote other book titles such as The Solution to Europe's Strange Death. Why didn't they write that book and sell it to all of us? Why didn't they promote that? Because they don't want you to find the solutions. In the end, common people will still support any political system that works for them, including fascism or reactionary movements. If we conclude that our modern bourgeois system of democracy and open borders spells genocide, then we in this moment gain the moral right to stand up for ourselves. We're not cattle. We won't be shipped off to the sausage factories of foreign wars just yet. Now, how do we prevent the West's strange death then and revive our civilization, our people? Well, we can start right now. Right now, you can realize that living for money and economic growth isn't the right ideal. Our true enemies, those at the top, care only about corporate profits. We care about our blood and our soil. Now, both of these sides are extremists, but only one of these sides represents the people and a future for our people. And that's us. That's us on the right. We are willing to give up living merely for luxury, knowing that if we would fight to advance what our ancestors started, this civilization that has not come to an end yet at all. We are simply in some kind of economic demise, but we will come out of that economic problem to rise again, right? To make ourselves strong again, and to make the world fear us again. Thank you for listening. I always really enjoy doing these speeches because I get the opportunity to basically affect people with communication, really. Thank you for the roses, eh? So I'd like to go over your comments and be a little interactive for a little bit. And then we can do other things, yeah. Bless Mother Earth. Hold on. Right. So how are you all doing? No, I'm not from South Africa. I'm Dutch. I'm from the ancestral lands of the Afrikaners, from the Netherlands. Although South Africa probably looks nicer than the Netherlands today. The Netherlands is a totally urbanized zone. It's always busy on the roads. We always have traffic jams. Okay, maybe in Africa you have potholes, so many that you can't drive on your roads anymore. Okay, we got proper roads, but it's always busy. It's always, frustrating. I had a busy day this morning driving around, and yeah, you love my energy, yeah? Good vibes. Thank you for being here. I have heard of Gemma O'Doherty from Ireland. Yeah, isn't she one of those journalists? She's fairly conservative or right wing, right? I'm just reading your comments a little bit. I will post my whole episode to my Substack newsletter. That's my main website. You can find my books there, my music, and my posts and so on. And subscribe, please, if you can. All right. You mean Nikola Tesla invented free energy? Well, I don't know. Good speech, yeah. I think the United States sold its land mostly to Chinese in the meantime. You should plan a lot of collaborations that will boost your message. Yes, I am. Coming Wednesday, I'll be talking, if everything goes right, I'll be talking to a woman from the USA, far right type. So I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm going to reach out to all sorts of women, and it turns out women are reaching out to me. I've had so this one wrote me to be on the show, and that's great. So of course, I have to do a little bit of background research. So I checked her Twitter and her TikTok. It's all right. Yeah. Because there's always this issue with infiltration, but also like the controlled opposition. If it's Candace versus Nicolas Fuentes, if those are your options, a Hispanic or a Negrita, where's the option I want? Right? Why can't I choose they don't give you the options that you want. It's two kinds of globalism, left way around or right way around, but it ends up in the same spot. Greetings from Sweden. Great speech to listen to. Yeah, thank you for being here. Yeah. What message? The far-right reactionary fascist message. That's where you are right now. Go back to La La Land if you don't like it. Do you like my tie, by the way? $5 from the thrift store. Right. I will speak in public as soon as I can, as soon as there's meaningful venues. But it appears that I need to start really my own movement. I've really exhausted myself looking into other movements. Although there is something that I think I can support. It's called Tradition Family Property, TFP. They're active in Europe nowadays. They represent sort of reactionary aristocracy, which is what I intend to support too. It's just that I think they also support Israel, and I'm not sure if they're pro-Israel or if they're more like Christian Zionists who believe in Jerusalem or something. But that I find it a bit odd. I just can't do it anymore. I'm just so done with this whole Zionist stuff. I've come to the conclusion that we need to make the Middle East Christian again. And I think that is the greatest fear that the Jews have. Why do you think Jewish people plant their educators and their leaders among us? Why do they, through acts of nepotism, seize power positions in our societies, now even put immigrants into those power positions, as basically anything to prevent us from ruling ourselves? Why do you think they do that? Because the day white men rule themselves, we would conquer the Middle East, we will take Jerusalem again, just like during the Crusades. We make that area Christian. Why is that important? If you link up the trade routes that kind of convene around the Middle East, the Suez Canal, the Persian Gulf, right, the Mediterranean, the Silk Road, overland routes, and so on, right, access to other parts. A lot of the world's trade comes together in that area, and plus there's oil. Imagine if we Europeans would take the oil rather than the Americans. Imagine what Germany would become still today, despite all the mass immigration. Things would change so rapidly. We would become a sort of neo-feudal, Spartan, quasi-fascist reactionary society, but we would thrive. We would have big families. We would be dancing and singing in the streets of joy. We would be filled with joy. Like I said, people will support any system that works for them. And if democracy doesn't work, we will do something else, right? If this, let's call it Zog-controlled nonsense doesn't work for us, we need to break those chains and free ourselves again, right? Yeah, Constantinople, yeah. We'll just take it, I suppose. I mean, I'm sick of these threats from the Turkish leader who always threatens Europe. Right? He wants to take Europe. He wants to rebuild the old Ottoman Empire. Fine, we'll build the old Byzantine Empire. I mean, we need to stop being so careless about giving away our future. No, we need to fight for that future, and that means you need to understand what it is. Right, the patriarchs of Constantinople, Alexandria, would be really happy if we took back the Middle East. Hey, start dreaming. This is the right approach. We're the only thing stopping them from ruling the world. Yeah. They say that Christ is king. Saying Christ is king is now, what is it, anti-Semitic. Why? Because they don't have a king. Who do they have even? Oh, Moses, right? They have Moses. Or Abraham. Who is it that they really worship? I don't even know. Who's their prophet? Moses, right? Right. I can speak passionately. Sometimes I manage, yeah. And that's how I hope to affect the world. Communication isn't just speaking the words. Communication is affecting a change in the mind of the hearer. So, of course, I'm Dutch. Yeah. Jesus Christ, Lord of Lords, King of Kings. Yeah. Christ is King. There's nothing wrong with this, is it? Is there? No. Trump should say it. I don't trust Trump anymore because of the Epstein stuff. I think he was a kitty diddler. I can't support him anymore. I did support him since 2016. Thought he was awesome. His brash bravado, how he fought against the media, really. That fight with the leftist media was great. But now I think he's a kitty diddler. He's been friends with Pedo Epstein for 20 years and you didn't know? And you didn't engage with that? Come on. Do you have any opinions on national syndicalism? Well, I don't exactly know what it means, but it's some far right thing then, right? My opinions on Fuentes is he's Mexican, he's a Jew, he loves Kanye. That tells me enough. So I think it's a game where they give you two options, but both of them are controlled. That's how controlled opposition works, right? All right. So I don't like that. All right. All right, I will upload my. I'll show you one more time my links. I will upload this episode to my Substack, to YouTube at The Great Johannes, and some other places. I'm on Rumble at Johannes MK as well. And I wish you all the best. Have a great evening. I will be back every Thursday. So next Thursday, I'll do another speech. And if all goes well, I will be speaking to a guest on my show on Wednesdays, an hour earlier than usual at 8 p.m. my time, Amsterdam time. That's like 11 a.m. Pacific time. I think so. I'm not sure. And then I'm going to do that more often. I'm going to try to get more women on the show. And it turns out that it's not that difficult to find them. And it's great to see the women's perspective on the far right, seeing the pro-white movement, right? All right. Have a nice evening.